Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second of three school board candidates forums sponsored by the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County and the West Contra Costa Unified School District. Tonight we have 10 candidates who will engage in debate moderated by Cheryl Chambers, a writer and businesswoman from our local community. And we encourage you to engage, ask questions. You have 4x6 cards that are out in the lobby, and I will have some circulating throughout the audience if you have questions. One of the moderators will pick them up, one of the representatives from the League of Women Voters or I will pick them up and bring them to the moderator for possible inclusion in tonight's event. So thank you very much for your time, and we encourage you to have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Cheryl Chambers. I'm your moderator for the Forum for the West Contra Costa Board of Education. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters. We are using the League of Women Voters format. Please hold all your applause until the forum is finished. There are many here who favor one person, and if we applaud each as they speak, we will have less time for questions to be answered. At the end, we will give all the candidates a rousing round of applause. Here are our ground rules. We will begin with each candidate introducing themselves and giving a 2-minute opening statement. Our timekeeper, Steve Collins, will keep track of the time. There will be a beep at 30 seconds and a triple beep when time concludes. After the opening statements, we will take a brief break and return to a series of questions for all the candidates. For the audience present, we are passing out index cards. After the second break, the cards will be collected and sorted for the next round of questions. Please word your questions in a general way so all candidates can respond to them. Questions from the audience need to be no longer than 20 seconds. Candidates, I think, started out being seated in alphabetical order. And the candidate drawing, we drew cards so they could do their opening statements with a random order. And I will read off the candidates' names, and we will do a reverse order for the 2-minute closing statement. We will begin with Ms. Raquel Donoso.
Good evening. So my name is Raquel Donoso. I am the daughter of immigrant families that came to this country looking for better opportunities. And that opportunity, I was told from early on, started and ended with a good education. So I've devoted my life to making sure that those opportunities are available to all of our young people in this country. I have worked for many years around education policy issues. Right now, I direct a $30 million Department of Education initiative in San Francisco called Mission Promise Neighborhoods. We're one of 12 sites in the country that is building a pipeline from cradle to career for young people to finish high school, go off to college, and have careers that they want in this world. So that's the work that I'm doing right now. I also am a public school parent. I've been a public school parent for 15 years. I have a 21-year-old who's a senior at Clark University in Massachusetts, and I have an 8th grader at Korematsu Middle School. We were at Madera Middle School, Elementary School before then. So I've seen from many different angles, what we need in terms of our education system. And there are 3 things that I am really focused on. One is how we're going to increase academic achievement and learning within our schools, especially looking at the disparities that exist in this district. 2 is how we have true, authentic community and parent partnerships. As somebody who's been on the PTA leadership and has been on school site councils, I think that's utterly important that we really make sure we have true, authentic partnerships. And the last one is accountability. How do we hold ourselves accountable to make sure that our kids are leaving the schools with the tools they need for a 21st century world? So that's what I'm focused on. I really would appreciate your vote on November 4th, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Next, Peter Chow.
Good evening. I just want to thank each and every single one of you for attending tonight. My name is Peter Nicholas Chow. I grew up in a single-parent, low-income household in Richmond. It was just me and my mom growing up. I'm a proud graduate of Pinole Valley High School, and after Pinole Valley High School, I went to Dartmouth College, graduated from Dartmouth College, just graduated from UC Hastings College of the Law, and I currently work in the District Attorney's Office right here in Richmond. I'm running because I want to reclaim the promise of a public education. When I was in school at Pinole Valley High School, I was the guy who sat in the back of the class and was not paying attention. I was not identified as gifted and talented, but I wasn't at risk either. I was the guy who was just sitting in the back, hoping everyone would ignore me. But because I had great math teachers who reached out to me and said, "Peter, I think you can do better," they tutored me during lunch. They tutored me after school. They spent all kinds of time to make sure that I understood what was going on. And because of that, that's how I got into Dartmouth College. But those same math teachers have now retired. We need to make sure that we have an active recruitment plan to replace those teachers. If we build a pipeline for talent, we can get lifelong, dedicated educators right here into our school district. What we need to do is support our teachers to make sure that we're targeting and that we're helping our students, not just the gifted and talented, not just the people at risk, but every single student. So that way, every single student has a fair shake. That's the reason why I'm running, and I thank you for considering me.
Thank you. Elaine Merriweather. Work with me, Elaine.
My name is Elaine Merriweather, and I'm running for a second term on the West Contra Costa School Board. I'm running because I know that we have made some changes in the district. I myself have been very active. I have implemented certain programs of my own, but I initiated transitional kindergarten a year before it actually became a state law in the district, because I believe that when we start young, our young fives get an opportunity to enter school before they go to kindergarten, that we'll see success later. I also promoted full service community schools, which aligns schools with community resources and partners to create better outcomes for children. I have been around the district a long time. I started back in the 1990s as PTA president. I've been a school site council chair at a high school. And I have a son right now in the district, so I'm a parent. I have an invested interest. But one thing I want you to know is that our landscape, our educational landscape has changed. We have Common Core now, we have LCAP, we have new science standards, and they're creating a new language, art standards. We have all these things that's coming to our district to help us do a better job with our students. And I believe that with all the, with everything that we have to help us, that we can do a greater job. And so we are making progress. And I'm asking for your vote to re-elect me on the board.
Thank you. 03 Christian.
Good evening, everyone. My name is 03 Christian, and I am running for the school board for the West Contra Costa Unified School District. And I am a product of Richmond. Grew up here in Richmond, born and raised here in Richmond, and my family came here in the 1940s. And then also my mom attended Cerrito High School. She graduated from Cerrito High School in 1953. So she's a Cerrito graduate. And so I stand in the place where she went to school at. And so, but I'm here as a community activist. I work in the Iron Triangle. I'm the president of the Iron Triangle Neighborhood Council. We've been working to improve the community and making a community a better community where people can live in. And so I can say that I work with young people throughout the city of Richmond, worked on ceasefire, worked on various projects to help reach our young people so our young people would not die on the street. I'm running for school board because I believe I bring new ideas to the table. I work here at Cerrito High School, and as the campus security officer here at Cerrito High School, I give a shout out to all the campus security officers here who make sure the safety of our young people every day when we step foot on this campus, that our young people are safe. I served on the Cerrito High School Site Council, and I have served on that and been part of those activities. Also, I'm mentoring young people in various areas to help our young people to overcome the negatives in their life. I'm running for school board because I believe I can bring new ideas to the table. And also I can bring leadership and teamwork and working with those on the board and to bring about solutions and ways of improving the achievement academics of our young people and making sure that our foundation is strengthened in the elementary, and because the elementary is the gateway that's going to lead to success for all of our young people throughout this whole school district. So I'm ready. When I win, our young people win. Our children win. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on?
No.
That's just me talking? Okay, here we go.
But you grab the other microphone so we can actually. Thank
Mr.
you.
Phillips, can you stand back behind the table? Thank you.
Hello?
Much better.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Phillips. I would like to start by thanking all of you for coming down and participating in this forum. I'd also like to thank the League for putting this forum on. This is a great public service, and it's one that I look forward to seeing continue over the years. I'm running for the school board to help our students. I have no other reason other than that to run. As a parent, member of the first 5 Contra Costa Children and Families Commission, labor relations representative in K through 12 public schools, attorney at law, and former substitute teacher in the West Contra Costa Unified School District and the San Francisco Unified School District. I believe that I have the right combination of experience to help our schools move forward. My vision is that every student will attend a safe school where they are engaged and able to achieve academically. If you elect me, I promise that I will strive to fulfill that vision for every student in our district, regardless of where they live or where they attend school. I plan to do that by focusing on 4 things. 1 is student safety. It's simple. If kids don't feel safe, some of them won't go to school. 2 is student engagement. If kids are not engaged when they're at school, some of them won't stay. 3, academic achievement. Well, that's what it's all about. We are trying to educate our children so they are able to go out into the world, whether that means they go to college, whether that means they go to a trade program, or whether that means they go work at the business down the street. We have to prepare them to be able to do that. And 4, employee morale. This is extremely important because the employees in our district are the ones that drive the services for our children. So we have to make sure that they are content and feel appreciated and respected so they can do their best work for our children. And I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Ms. Young.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight to hear us all speak. And I am Ayanna Kirkland Young. I'm running for school board member, and I'm doing so simply because I am a concerned parent. Now, by profession, I'm an attorney, and I'm a solo practitioner. I represent plaintiffs in employment disputes, violations of Department of Fair Employment Housing, so discrimination, harassment, things like that. So I'm an advocate by profession, but I also have 7 kids, so I'm an advocate by nature. So 4 of my kids are enrolled in the district right now, and I have 1 more who will be in kindergarten next year. So I'm very, very concerned about how our schools are, what our schools are giving our students. I've lived here for over 30 years. And I say here because I see this district as more than just the schools within the district. It's also all the cities and all the people that make up the communities. You know, when I went to Pinole High School, and I came up here to El Cerrito probably every week because this is what we did. High school was fun. School was fun. I saw a different life when I was growing up, and it was evolved around these schools, and we had such a good time. And it makes me sad about what's going on in the school district right now. So what I want to focus on is student education being the priority. When I say student education being the priority, I mean that we have to focus on whatever that is, whether that is making sure that our kids are reading us at strike that, as I would say. We're making sure that the kids are reading at the level they should be reading. They should be getting high scores in science and math, and we need to have enrichment programs so that we can make sure that happens. I also want to make sure that our teachers get the resources they need. I'm not a teacher, although I did substitute in this district for a few years, and I realize that teachers need resources so that they can be successful. So I want to make sure that they get those. And lastly, I really want to make sure that our community is a community again, that the district works with the community to make sure that we're open and we are honest with what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Valerie Cuevas. Most of my friends call me Val, so I hope you'll call me Val. I'm running for school board because I think there's 3 things we need to work on. The first is, how many remember when you were in a classroom? Yes. It's not a trick question. How many people were ever in a classroom? Yeah, you're still in it, right on. How many people remember when you had that moment where a teacher was trying to teach you something, and maybe it was a little hard at first, but then you got it? Do you remember that feeling? How many of you have been a teacher and you've been working with students and you look at their eyes and you know that moment when it's like the magic happens and they got it? That's why I'm running for school board. Because I want to be here to be an advocate, a proponent, a champion, a cheerleader, whatever we need to do to make that magic happen and happen over and over and over again for our students. And make sure that we're supporting our hardworking teachers who want that to happen too. You know, unfortunately in this district, the latest data we show tell us we have a lot of work to do. Only 36% of our 3rd graders are reading at proficient or above in this district. 3rd grade is such a key year. 3rd grade is the year when you stop learning to read and start reading to learn. And so I think that's an important thing, and I'm going to be somebody who will be able to focus on how that is important. The last thing is with the new local control funding formula, I want to make sure we send as many of those dollars to our school sites. Because we can't make that happen from the district office. We got to support what's happening at our local school sites. And the last thing is, we got to make sure we recruit, support, and keep our hardworking teachers. Those are the 3 things that I would like to champion as your cheerleader on the school board. And I hope I'll have your support. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my ideas as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming, and I'd like to thank everybody on this board for being here. I'm Chester Stevens, and I'm also running for board member. I'm running because the district has a dismal past, and if we don't do something soon, very soon, it will have a dismal future. I'm in the classroom virtually every day. I've been in virtually every school, in many of the classrooms, including this school. I've spoken to the superintendent about my assessment of children not learning, not knowing that a pizza can be cut into an odd number of pieces, not knowing that if you write a description of how to put a big pen together, half of the students would not be able to do that or follow the instructions. My background is corporate America and education. I taught my 5th grade class in geometry because my teacher was absent a lot. I taught in corporate America. I'm a substitute teacher in this school district. And I'm in every classroom. And I see children who are hungry. I see children whose shoes don't fit. I see teachers, sometimes are calloused. Sometimes they're just overwhelmed. I see algebra teachers who don't grade papers. And that's critical to African American children, who we say contribute mostly to the achievement gap. But African American children, the grade point average is 1.9, has been 1.9 for 20 years. And we have a lot of lip service about it, but nobody actually does anything. Well, I do have a plan. I've always had a plan, and I've exercised a plan. Unlike a lot of them here, my boots are on the ground just about on every major issue that you can name. And we'll talk about that a little more as the night progresses. Thank you very much. I ask for your support. It's time for change, and I'm the one to bring that change.
Thank you. Ms. Block.
Pass the mic back. Microphones. Can't hog them.
perhaps we can get the second mic to work at the other table.
Thank you. I didn't know if I was going to get a turn.
Of course you were.
All right. Hi, I'm Liz Block, and thank you for sponsoring this. This is such a beautiful building. I had an opportunity to walk around a little bit as I found my way, and certainly we're doing something right in this district if we have a school that looks like this. I'm running for school board because I believe all our students should and can have better educational outcomes and be more prepared for college and career. I'm running because I believe our district needs better fiscal oversight and accountability, especially as it relates to our bond program. I'm running because I feel we need open, transparent communications with our district to rebuild public trust in our schools. As a member of the school board, I will set policies that ensure that community members, teachers, principals, and classified staff are encouraged to give feedback to board members and the superintendent about the needs of the district from their important perspective. My background leaves me well prepared to serve on the board. I've worked in the public schools for over 32 years. I've been a school psychologist, a special education administrator, and an elementary school principal. In my last position, I, with the help of a dedicated group of teachers, raised student achievements in one of the lowest performing schools in the state, a school that's not unlike many of our schools in Richmond. My 32 years of experience, in particular my success in raising student achievement at a chronically low-performing school, prompted me to run for the school board to address the inequities that I see in our district. Please vote for me, Liz Block, a candidate for change.
Thank you. Our last opening statement will be from Ms. Cronenberg. See if it works.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming here to El Cerrito tonight to hear us. My name is Madeline Cronenberg. I've served on the school board now for 8 years, and I'm running now for re-election to my third term. I've been a teacher for 30 years and was teaching full-time during my first term on the school board. I taught in Hayward, and I taught career technical classes, and won the Teacher of the Year award. So I'm very, very committed to a strong teaching practice. During my 8 years on the board, every one of our metrics for student achievement have gone up. We've improved across the board. We're not where we need to be, but during that time we've also had enormous cuts in our funding sources, and we've had to recover from those, which we're doing. And it's an incredibly exciting time. As Ms. Cuevas said, there is magic. There is magic in the air. There is magic in our classrooms. And I really believe we can move that magic forward so that all of our children have the opportunity to experience it. My goals are to increase the student achievement, to make sure that we continue to shrink our achievement gap. We've got programs in place to do it. We are a district with tremendous innovation. We've worked to put together programs that we've won statewide and national recognition for. I also am support, which I'll talk about later. I'm also supporting safety in our schools. This is a seismically safe school. It replaced one that certainly was not. And have our schools not only physically but emotionally safe, and collaboration. Collaboration with our teachers, collaboration with our parents, collaboration with our community. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our opening statements. We will now move into the questions, the first round of questions. I will read the question. Each candidate will respond. I will draw your names randomly to see what order you will respond. First question. If you can only make one innovation as a new board member, what would that one innovation be? Mr. Noso.
Today is my day. I was just thinking yesterday, I don't get to be one often, so today I get to be one. I have to say, from a parent perspective, my one innovation would be that we truly have authentic, real, full parent participation. That was the one thing I think I mentioned and people have probably heard before. When I had my older son and came here to the Bay Area, I was a single mom. And I knew if my son was going to have an opportunity, and I was a young single mom, I became a mom at 18. If he was going to have an opportunity to succeed, it was going to be because I was going to be very involved in every step in his learning. And I don't think that there's enough collaboration right now happening in the district. I go to board meetings where parents come and are not given the full attention and really seen as true stakeholders in this district. And so my one innovation would be that we have a board that truly sees parents as important stakeholders and that we have parents and full parent participation
Thank you,
and
Mr.
engagement.
Noso. Next up, Ms. Cronenberg.
My number one thing would be for us to put a plan together where we support our teachers and become nationally board certified. The single most effective training program in the United States is the National Board Certification. It's more effective than if you get a PhD. And the process is there. We don't have to reinvent it. What we need to do is encourage our teachers to do it. And right now they have to pay to do it, and it's not something that we've really incentivized. So I incentivize it.
Thank you. Next. Both three Christian.
Yes, what my priority goal would be is to bring community relationship, in other words, with the school district and the community, and to build the trust and accountability and transparency from Hercules back to Pinot, back to Richmond, San Pablo, El Cerrito, and Kensington, is to bring accountability and trust where we also involving in relationship or having a community involvement in our schools. And then I would like to see that we have partnership with nonprofit entities to help bring about resources to our young people throughout the school district. And that's it.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Stevens.
The one thing I would do would be to give parents a paid day off. What they don't realize, and the district doesn't put it in their literature, is that parents have a right to attend their schools 8 hours per child, and that's a state law. And currently they're working on adding another sick day to workers. I'd like for that sick day to be dedicated to the parents so that parents can go to classrooms. I'd like to open up a classroom, open the classrooms up so that parents with proper notice can go and sit all day rather than 20 minutes. By the time the roll is called, then the parents asked to leave. That happened to me, and it's happening to a lot of other parents. I think parents make a difference. They're part of the success formula, and we don't seem to acknowledge them for that. And we don't have a way of really engaging them and incorporating. I hear everybody else talking about engagement. Really, they've talked about parent involvement, and I'm the one that brought parent engagement. It's a whole different distinction, and I'd like to take the time sometimes to talk to you about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chow.
So for anyone who's wondering, I'm 27 years old. But as a 27-year-old, I bring a fresh, independent perspective onto the board. And one of the perspectives that I bring onto the board is the fact that I have a large, crushing student loan burden. If there was one innovation that I would implement in our school district, it's to cover student loan debt, to attract and retain qualified teachers. That's what people in my generation are looking for when they're looking at teacher compensation packages. We can start out slowly by targeting math and science teachers inside our schools, and we can cover their student loan debt because it's capped based on the percentage of income. And after 10 years, in exchange for covering student loan debt, we can get teachers to commit to stay in this school district so that we get teachers and we keep teachers in our school district. We can do this, and that's the perspective that I bring onto the board. That's the innovation that I would bring to the board.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
So I'm 38 years old, and I have, so what I would like to bring would be
I'm really concerned about our children not being able to read at grade level in both first grade and third grade. As a substitute teacher, I saw students firsthand really struggling with reading. There's not a lot of after-school programs. There's nothing to help them. So what I would like to do is I would really like to expand kindergarten to be full day. I would love to see young children be able to get 5 or 6 hours of instruction so that they actually learn how to read when they're prepared for first grade. So that's what I would really like to do. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to strive hard to do all that I can, but I don't know what the budget looks like. I'm going to be really honest. We can promise you all these things and say all this good stuff, but we really don't know what the budget is other than Ms. Cronenberg and Ms. Merriweather. So I promise to do all that I can to help this district do better, and I'm hoping that's going to help kids to learn how to read.
Thank you. Ms. Block.
Well, if I could change one thing, it would be the way people look at our students' ability to learn. Right now, our very own strategic plan says that many people who work in the district see failure of many of our students as a foregone conclusion. Pretty shocking, isn't it? So I would make sure that all of our district staff, from the superintendent down, are held accountable for student learning and for improving student learning. The superintendent, the district office administrators would move down to the site administrators, and everyone would be evaluated based on whether or not students' learning improved in their school. This can happen. I did it at my very own school where we had a shooting when kids were dismissed at kindergarten time. And a murder, by the way. We didn't use that as an excuse for not improving our learning, and we can improve learning here in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Merriweather.
So the one innovative thing that I would change is that I would want after-school program in every one of our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high school. That's where the innovation starts. Bring back the music, the arts, the science. We should have after-school computer labs where our students can go and use the computer. Most of you might not know, but we have over 1,000 homeless kids in our district. So that means they don't have the opportunity to work on the computer or have someone help them with their homework. And so that's what I would want to do. I want all of our schools to be an after-school program where kids would run to be there. And I feel that this is what our kids really need. And we're developing the whole child. That means everything, all those social-emotional needs, mental health, academics, it all works. And so that's what my ideal would be.
Thank you. Ms. Cuevas.
So one of the reasons why I know I can speak to this issue is because I actually serve as the interim executive director of the Education Trust West. We are a policy research and advocacy organization that focuses on closing gaps in opportunity and achievement for all our students. When it comes to one of the innovations, I think it's important to recognize that innovation means thinking forward. And that means, how many of you know that there are 3-year-olds who know how to use the computer better than you do? What are we doing to take that energy around that and making sure we're working with our teachers to figure out the best ways to do blended learning? That becomes a learning tool in our classrooms so that our kids are actually utilizing that energy and enthusiasm for the computer and technology, but we're making sure to marry that and it becomes something that becomes useful in our classrooms. That's happening in other places across the state. And I think that's something that we can focus on because it would give our teachers a break as well. It would help them reach kids where they're at, help with differentiated learning opportunities for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips.
So we're always looking for the silver bullet, but there is no silver bullet. We have to take a multi-pronged approach if we're going to change this district and turn it around for the best. That's why I spoke about 4 things: student safety, student engagement, academic achievement, and employee morale. But if I have to talk about one right now, I'm going to talk about employee morale, and this is why. Because if we get it right with the employees, if we give them the development that they need if we unleash all of their talents and let them teach and support the children the way they want to and the way we know they can, we'll have a different district, because those are the people who are going to be servicing the after-school programs that Elaine is talking about. Those are the people who are going to be doing the programs that Madeline is talking about. This is about empowering people so they can empower our children. And that's what I would do if you elect me to this board.
Thank you. Here's our second question. How do you plan to help eradicate the school-to-prison pipeline? And what programs or policies do you plan to implement to help our students be successful, especially our talented Black and brown youth? And the first responder will be O3 Christian.
To that question, this is what we have to do. We have to invest into our young people. Number one, we know young people come from various parts of the communities throughout the school district. And we know that a lot of young people are faced with a lot of difficulties, a lot of situations that they come from the environment. So we have to meet these young people with their needs. That means we have to provide those resources to help them navigate out of the negatives. Because if we don't, see, we got to think in this day and term. We can't operate like we operated 20 years ago. This is a new day and era. We have to provide the resources. That's why partnership with nonprofit agencies is very important, because they specialize in different areas. And so if we know they specialize, we should have the relationship that's with the school and the community. And that's the way we're going to stop our young people from going into the jail system. So we have to change the process how things are operating. So it starts with working with the community at large.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
School to prison pipeline.
Microphone.
I remember 1995 when I was asked by Diane Feinstein to sit on one of the town hall meetings. Sorry. I remember in 1995 I was asked to be on a panel with Diane Feinstein when she was pushing the president's crime bill. And so I stood up in front of the press and in front of the audience and said, you know what, every time we spend $1 on a prison, there ought to be an equivalence amount on schools, placed on schools. Because what prison planners do, they look at the performance of third graders and determine how many prisons to build. They stack them, they spend millions on new batons for prison guards and all of that stuff. So I'm telling you, that's one of the biggest things that I've seen. It's really appalling. In addition to that, I think that we need to break that connection. We need to stop. First of all, we need to find out where that is occurring. Why is there data that's being fed to the prison planners? We need to stop that and find it. But I tell you too, if we don't do something about the inequity in learning and the technology for schools for African American children, we're going to fill the prisons.
Thank you. Mr. Chow.
The answer is quite simple, and that is to commit to the restorative justice model. This is an issue that's really near and dear to me as a member of the District Attorney's Office here in Contra, Costa County. The restorative justice model offers kids a way to rehabilitate not only the perpetrator of an incident, but also the victim of an incident as well, so that the harm gets resolved, and so that way both sides can go on with their lives. But the problem is that even though the school district has implemented the restorative justice model, there are problems implementing it right now. For instance, we need to commit to intensive therapeutic counseling for our kids, because these kids are entering into our school walls with significant adversity. Not only are they hungry, but they're also coming from broken homes. We need intensive therapeutic counseling to help resolve these issues, because we know that the restorative justice model works. It works in other school districts, and it can work right here in West County.
Ms. Cronenberg.
We've taken a real look at this issue in this district, and the solution for the school-to-prison pipeline, I believe, is in our full-service community schools. The full-service community schools offer additional support much like Mr. Chow was speaking about. It allows our schools to have within them not only additional tutors, but additional therapists and social services that will help our students to be able to achieve. We also have an initiative for our African American male students. We've put together programs to allow them to work together to be mentored. We have the Young Scholars Program, and we have organizations at each of our high schools that specifically support our African American male students.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips.
So what can we do to reduce the school-to-prison pipeline? One, I want to acknowledge that it is a real problem, and it is in this community and other communities as well. But the main thing that we can do is actually keep kids in school. Because the majority of the time when children are getting in trouble, it's during that after-school period of time when they don't have anything else to do. So Ms. Merriweather, for example, talked about extracurricular activities, after-school programs for children. That's one thing. I talked earlier about school safety. This is about keeping kids in school. If kids don't feel safe, they don't go to school. And they go other places and they get in trouble. If they don't feel engaged, they don't stay in school and they go other places and they get in trouble. We also need to look at suspension and expulsion rates because again, if children are not in school, they're out doing other things and getting in trouble. And all of these things contribute to the school-to-prison pipeline. We also need to make sure that our police officers working in the school are sensitive and work with the children.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Okay, so the school to prison pipeline, I think it's multi-level because first, what we have to do is start with our young kids and make sure that they are actually getting educated. If they learn how to read in kindergarten, first grade, and then they won't be behind in third grade. If school is fun for them because they're not sitting in the back of the classroom not knowing what's going on, they'll want to continue. So that's one way that we can stop that. But then we also have to look at what's going on right now. So we have our students here at school. How do they feel? A lot of the African American students feel like people don't understand them. So a lot of people want to say we need therapists, social services for these guys, and we do. But we also need, different services for teachers and for faculty, so they know how to, they can understand our cultural differences. So they won't, I think a lot of times the young boys think that the teachers think I'm violent or they think I'm aggressive because they're passionate. So we need programs so that people can learn how to deal with the cultural differences as well.
Thank you. Ms. Merriweather.
So the school to prison pipeline has been around a long time, and experts have been trying to figure out how can we address this. And so in our district, we have taken it very seriously, and that's one of the reasons why on the school Climate and Safety Committee, we looked at the suspensions in our district and we started trying to decrease them. And by bringing in restorative justice, and we have a program called BEST and Toolbox, which starts early. And I think you have to start early. You have to intervene early for our younger students. I also believe that, that when students know that the teacher cares about them, they will behave. And so many of our teachers care about our students. And that's why they do the restorative circles and they work extra with them. And so that's really important as well. There's other programs that we can bring into the district.
Ms. Merriweather, time. Thank you. Mr. Noso.
So I believe that we have to set higher expectations for our students and really look at our students and our families as real people. It hurts to hear that we may think about our students as coming from a broken home, because my son came from a single parent home and our home was not broken. And so we have to see all of our students set high expectations that they can achieve. In our strategic plan, there's one of the things that we want to do is increase the number of kids who are UC and CSU ready. Right now, 37% of our students are UC or CSU ready, and the goal over the next 3 years is to go from 37 to 43%. If I'm on the board, I would not accept a 6% increase over 3 years as setting high expectations. We should set expectations that all of our children, regardless of where they come from, can be UC or CSU ready, regardless of what they end up doing in their life. So,
Thank you. Ms. Cuevas.
So nearly 85% of juveniles who face trial are functionally illiterate. Over 70% of America's inmates cannot read above 4th grade level. 2 out of 3 students who cannot read proficiently by the end of the 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. I look at those statistics, and that's one of the reasons why you're going to see in my candidate statement that the one thing that I think is important academically is we focus on literacy in our district. When you hear all those stats, I want to remind you, 36% of 3rd graders in this district are reading at grade level or above. That's almost 60. Somebody here, your kid is being touched by that statistic. And we know what the trajectory is if we don't do something about it. I want to make sure we support our teachers, our families. We start talking about literacy, how important it is. There's no silver bullets, because we need all the solutions that everybody talked about. But we got to focus them on what will make the difference.
Thank you. Ms. Block.
Well, everyone, so many people have pointed out the importance of reading by 3rd grade. So what if kids aren't reading by 3rd grade? Do we just have them repeat the grade and hope they get it the next time? No, we need to try something different. We need to look at their targeted area, look at their areas of weakness and give them targeted instruction. Try different things until we find what is hampering that individual child from making progress in reading. But let's not kid ourselves. It's not only our schools, it's our society that's really grossly unfair right now. And we have district attorney's offices that are overwhelmed where a child could be wrongly accused of a crime and be held in jail for 2 years while they await trial. So let's remember, we also have to look at the larger picture. But for schools, we really just have to do better in educating our kids. And that starts when they're young, and identifying how we can improve them when they're not progressing.
Thank you, Ms. Block. That concludes question 2. On to question 3. What will you do to make the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee independent? Our first responder, Ms. Donoso.
Sure. So one of the things on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee is that there are members on the committee that are appointed by the board. And so I don't think that we should have members on the committee that are appointed by the board. So that's the first thing I would do. I also know that there's a lot of frustration on that committee in terms of getting information, in terms of getting packets on time before the meetings. We experienced that when I was going through the local control accountability plan, where we would get packets at the last minute. And so I think the other thing we have to do is set some standards in terms of when the information is going to be made available to the committee, and also when the information is going to be made available to the public, so that we have sufficient time before meetings to review them, that they're in multiple languages, so that we can actually have an informed discussion and be able to review the information on that oversight committee. So those are 2 things that I would immediately do to make the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee more independent.
Thank you. Mr. Chow.
So the California Education Code actually requires the Board of Education to appoint at least 2 members to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. But I think specifically, individual board members should not be able to appoint. I think that goes above and beyond what the California Education Code requires. So I think what we need to do is really take a hard look at the composition of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Perhaps we need to look at shrinking the size so that way it's more efficient and less wieldy. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we recognize the volunteers who volunteer their valuable time in serving on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. The other thing I want to do is commit to an independent bond counsel. If the CBOC feels that they need an independent lawyer to render decisions for them and provide a legal perspective, then let's do it. So that way, we can just cut through the nonsense and just get right to the heart of the matter, which is whether the bond money has been well spent or not, whether the bond money has been overseen by citizens.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what we need to get
Ms.
to.
Merriweather?
So our CBOC committee has been operating by appointments by boards members. And so I think that we can change that process as far as we can put all the volunteer names that are submitted. They have to submit an application to the district. Once they submit the application, then it can be just randomly picked so that a board member wouldn't have to appoint a certain person. I'm okay with that because we're still following the ed code. And so the other thing is that they are volunteering their time, and I think that they should be recognized. And we should give them everything they need to do their job on that committee. And that means giving them all the information that they need. And if they need extra people coming in to just explain to them. We started a Bond 101 where we have someone now, they're training them from the very beginning.
Mr. Phillips.
I'm going to take a few seconds to backtrack because the last question was extremely important as well. The last thing I needed to point out is we have school resource officers here, and they deal with these children, and school-based arrests do lead to the school-to-prison pipeline. So we need to make sure that all of the police officers, and my parents are both retired cops, we need to make sure that all of the police officers working with our children are sensitive and able and well-equipped to work with children and work with them through all of their teenage issues and angst, because that's also extremely important. As far as the bond program is concerned, I'm happy to say that I am endorsed by the chair of the Bond Oversight Committee, and that is because I believe in a fully independent and empowered oversight committee. I think one of the most important things that we can do to empower the Oversight Committee is make sure that they have all of the information that they need to do their job, and that they have that information in a timely and accessible manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Ms. Cronenberg.
Okay. Well, like Mr. Phillips, I'm also endorsed by the chair of the Bond Oversight Committee. I think the most important thing at this point is to actually listen to the Bond Oversight Committee and recognize what they have asked for to prove their independence. And the one thing they did want was access to independent counsel, and I think they can have that. That makes total sense. They can get their own legal advice, and that would give them independence. The other thing that we could do to make them more independent is to give them some power over choosing and being in on the interviews for the people who are members of the committee. I think that the board doesn't need to appoint their own people. The board just can approve the membership, but I think that we haven't had an opportunity for the members of the committee to be part of the interview process and selection, and I think that is the other thing that would really make them more independent.
Thank you. Mr. Christian.
One of the things I would like to make sure is that the Bond Oversight Committee is made of people from all the communities, and making sure that we have people that are able to think for themselves and not being controlled and manipulated. We need people to be honest and sincere about making sure that everything is done correctly. So that would be my task, is to make sure that it's independent and making sure that we have people who are not manipulated.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Stevens.
Yes, again, this is a case of boots on the ground. I was an alternate to the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, so I went there and I saw how dysfunctional it was, and it is very large, I think 19 members or so. I have been in conversation with members of the CBOC, and they tell me that it's really, really a mess. I'm reminded of when in San Jose there's a judge, Judge Edwards, who, when people come to his court, he refuses to speak legalese. He talks at a level that even an 8th grader can understand. And when I was in computer science and development, I wrote documents and things that were also readable by 8th graders, and something as complex as computer science. So I think that the data and the information needs to flow a lot better. If it had, in fact, maybe we wouldn't be wondering about this upcoming, might be scandal that's occurring right now. If CBOC had a little more information, a little more in depth in understanding the documents and things that come from them. So I'm very, very disillusioned by that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
So in order to make the CBOC independent, I do think that they need their own independent counsel. They've asked for that, and I think it's important. So that's the first thing. I also think that in terms of the board, appointing people, that needs to stop so that there's no conflict. There also should not be anyone on the oversight committee that works for the district or is contracted in some way by the district. I think that could create some sort of conflict, and so that should be out. These people should be volunteers, which they are, and they should be able to do their job. So if they have independent counsel and they also have some sort of construction consultant, so that they know what they're looking at. Right now they're going through all these change orders. I actually go to the trainings and I'm going to the bond meeting, so they go through all these change orders and they really don't have a clear sense of what's going on. So they need someone there that's in construction. So a construction consultant, independent counsel, they would be more independent.
Thank you. Ms. Cuevas?
So the fact that somebody just stood up here and said they're endorsed by the chair of the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee tells you how deep the problem is. She's a volunteer.
Candidates.
She meets all the criteria that we said.
Candidates, let's stay positive.
I am staying positive. Let me get to my positive message.
She's accusing somebody of corruption.
The positive message is, I'm just saying, I'm one of those people who's like regular, common person who sits back like you and says, wait, that don't make sense. And the issue is really, we need independence, but we need the right people on that board. We have people in Hercules, in Pinole, and El Cerrito who are actually accountants, who are construction accountants, who actually have the skill set. Why aren't we making sure that we as a community tell, because we can't make them not have an appointee, but we can say, you know what, it would go a long way with me as a voter if you pick this kind of person. A person who has a skill set, a set of independence that can actually make a difference on that board. That's what I would do.
Ms. Block, we'll finish this round of questions.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have again someone in the audience is yelling negative comments at speakers, as he was doing last time, and he just raised his hand very proudly. I don't think that should be allowed.
I haven't heard anything. I must reiterate that we're not going to have any comments from the audience, so
yeah, thank you.
Apologize.
All right, so I agree with my esteemed colleagues that we shouldn't have board members appointing people for the Citizens Bonds Oversight Committee. The state requires that we have 5 members. A senior citizen was one of them. Are you correcting me? What is it? 7. So with the 7 required members, you can see that very quickly it can become very large, especially when we have the appointments by the board members. One of the problems I think we've had is the large group that's on this committee. So perhaps by doing what we're all recommending, we could reduce the size of the committee.
Thank you. This concludes our first round of questions. We're going to take a 2-minute break. If you have an index card with a question on it, please raise your card up. We will collect those cards and we'll resume in 2 minutes with our second round of questions and closing statements. Thank you.
Could I have a card? Yeah.